Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the regular City Council meeting, July 8th, 2019, City of Lamarque, beginning at 6 p.m. Let the record reflect that all members of council are present. And if you'll please stand for the invocation and pledge. And I've asked Reverend Daniels to pray for us this evening.
Let us bow. Oh God, our Father, we thank you today for life. We thank you for liberty. We thank you for the pursuit of happiness. We thank you, dear Jesus, that you spared us and allowed us to come in this like manner. Now we pray, dear Master, that you would take us out of self and let us down into the mysteries of your word and your spirit, that we might do those things which is pleasing in your sight. Now, Father, we realize that we can't do anything without you, but we must look now and pray for forgiveness for our sins and love our souls and hearts freely once again. Go with us and stand by us in all that we might say and do. And then, Father, we pray that you would bless this municipality, bless the administration. We pray that you would bless this council, give them the courage, the strength, the wisdom, and the insight to do those things which are pleasing in your sight. And then, Father, it would be remiss if we didn't ask that you would bless our nation. We ask you that you strengthen us all where we're weak, build us up where we're torn down, and carry us through our dangers, seen and unseen. That when traveling days are over, when it's yours to call and ours to answer, we have done such a job in front of thee that we'll hear your welcome voice saying, "Well done, thy good and faithful servant." These and all other blessings we're praying and thanking you for. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Daniels. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Item number 4 on the agenda, 4A, introduction of the new city employee, Detective Gene Crow, Lamarque Police Department, and followed by an employee presentation. Chief, if you'll meet me down here with Officer Crow. Chief will do it.
For those of you who do not recognize this gentleman, his name is Larry Eugene Crow Jr., or otherwise known as Gene Crow. Gene started his career in law enforcement back in the late 80s as a reserve police officer here. His father was Larry Crow, the police chief here. Gene went to Texas City, spent 26 years at Texas City. He decided he wanted to finish out his career back home. So a year ago, I hired him. So it's neat that 25 years ago, his dad hired me, and last year I got to hire him. So it's pretty neat. So Gene Crow is our new police officer here, and if you don't recognize his face, get to know him because he's one of the most nice and helpful and professional officers you'll ever meet. So, ladies and gentlemen, Officer Gene Crow.
Welcome back home.
One more hand. Now, my distinct honor to call up my friend, a friend of this council and this city, and probably every ditch that he's ever fixed from flooding, and every canal he's cleaned out, and every road he's patched. Joe Mose, would you come up with me? recommended customer service policy for all employees who serve the citizens of our great city. This policy, which requires excellence in customer service and places the burden of providing a positive interaction with citizens on our employees, also states that each employee is responsible for recognizing their fellow employees when they witness excellent customer service. We have an employee with us tonight that has been recognized by fellow employees for providing excellent customer service. I'd like to read you an excerpt from a letter received from a Marque citizen about Mr. Moses. I do not often write letters to my representatives, but in this case I thought it was imperative that you know that this civil servant is both kind and sympathetic to the needs of the citizens of this neighborhood. I cannot tell you how appreciative we all are of Mr. Mose and his crew. I walked over to where they were working and thanked them personally, but that seemed insufficient to me. Therefore, this correspondence. I will personally add this. Joe Mo's hard work, positive attitude, and dedication to the city of Lamarck makes him an invaluable member of our city team. It is with great pleasure that I present this Customer Service Excellent Award to my friend and your friend, Mr. Joe Mo.
One more. Thank you so much.
Let's give him another hand.
Yeah.
And there's the Public Works Director, Chase Terry, so if you have a problem, don't call me. Just kidding. Call me anytime. Next on our agenda, item 5, citizens' participation, limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments from the public. At this time, any person with city-related business who has signed up may speak to council, limited to 3 minutes. In compliance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, the city may not deliberate on comments. Personal attacks will not be allowed, and personnel matters should be addressed to the city manager during normal business hours. And please excuse my redundancy, but you've heard me say this many times before. If we sit here looking at you like a calf staring at a new gate, it's because we're not by law allowed to respond. Our first speaker is Reverend Daniels, James Daniels.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I'd like to take just 30 seconds of my time to congratulate my brother, he's gone now, Joe Mose. He is a fine employee.
Yes, sir.
And my heart was filled with joy and gratitude too when he received that award, because he is very deserving of that reward. Joe has always been a kind and a gentle, but a hard-working individual. So thank you all very much. And I came tonight for a couple of reasons. The first reason is to tell the council that you all couldn't have done a greater thing than to have allowed our police chief to begin outreach to the community, because it has done nothing but bore fruit. And we, members of the Ministerial Alliance of Lamarque and Texas City, we want to thank you all for that. Secondly, I know that you all are going to be talking about this later on, but I want to get this off my chest so we can go and get through with it. I am firmly in concurs with the curfew. I've lived here all of my life. I'm 71 years old anyway. And I've never known Lamarque or Texas City not to have a curfew. Now, the curfew language may be needed to address, but the curfew is needed. Why? The greatest reason is, you all know that we just annexed and consolidated with Texas City Independent School District. And our children need as much help that we can give them. Therefore, I believe in my heart that the only way that a child is going to be able to learn anything, he got to be at home to study. And that's one of the main things. Second thing is the child doesn't need to be walking the streets because it's too much that they can get into. And then accidentally, with all this killing and stuff going on, those kids need to be at home. So I hope and pray that we will deal with this curfew issue. But as far as the Ministerial Alliance, the Mainland Baptist Association is concerned, we are in favor of this curfew. And we're also in favor with this community getting together and beginning to work with our police chief, because he's done everything he could to reach out to the community. Now it's time that we did something for him. We have meetings every fourth Thursday right here at City Hall to deal with these issues that we're now piled up in here to talk about. We deal with these issues at those meetings. And he has reached out because these individuals have given him the okay to do it. So I'm talking to you all tonight. If you all have a problem, find out what day and time we're meeting, which is the fourth Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock. And we can come there and get this stuff straight. But I want him to know, he sits back there now, I want him to know that he's doing a fantastic job in the community. They're so blessed to have him here as the police chief. Thank you all.
Thank you, Reverend.
And I'll take some other minutes from the next time.
You won't get a ticket for running the red light, Reverend. Mayor Geraldine Sand.
I'm real sensitive to mayor and city council. I am real sensitive, and I just want you all to know that we had one of the best Juneteenth in this city. I mean, that you would have all been proud. We had everybody there, black, white, Hispanic, everybody was there, and we had so much fun. I just want city manager was there, him and Matt, and they're all day long, just to make sure that we were having problems with the electricity, and they found us a generator. We were going to try to find a generator. They found us a generator, the library, the lights, and I mean, I was like, oh my God. And the police department, they worked with us, the city workers were there, all the leaders from the community. Casey, from the beginning, from the beginning to the end, we were all on radio stations together. It was just amazing, everything. We had leaders from other cities there with Constable Rose and school board. Remember Nikisha Powell working with us. When I started out talking about Juneteenth, the people that started out with me did not end up with me. I had to call in my team. I had to call in a team. Tracy Steins, I said, Tracy, I can't do it without you. Tracy, I got it. And all the young people just came in and I said, Casey, I need this. She said, I got it. And then Tracy said, I got it. And I was like, oh Lord. And the community just came together. The workers, everyone I can't even brag on everyone enough, but especially Mac and city manager, they stayed with us the whole day. Mac left for a minute, and then he came back and said, you need anything else? I said, Mac, y'all have got us. And it was just awesome. So I want to thank my crew and as well as the community of Marque, because we did have a wonderful time for Juneteenth in our community. And we just want to thank you all for all you've done to make Juneteenth in Marque a wonderful, wonderful event. And so again, I just want to thank y'all. I got my little tissue. I just, y'all know how I am. They know how I am back here. But when everything just came together, it just came together. Mayor was there with us, and everybody just flowed. It was just so beautiful out there. So again, thank y'all again for helping us with Juneteenth in Marque. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sam. And I've already talked to the city manager about budgeting for Juneteenth in the future.
Look, don't make me start crying.
I think you already are, but it's okay. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much.
Ball, Miss Sam, just go for it.
Yes, ma'am.
Look,
Milk
I'm
it.
gonna give y'all my other prayer in a minute.
This council is happy to do that, and that's
Thank you so
not,
much.
that's not breaking open meetings. That's just a statement of fact.
Thank you so
Uh,
much.
I don't have a name on this, but it says the Juneteenth Committee. Mr. Hopgood, is that you?
How you doing?
Good.
Once again, I just want to piggyback off Ms. Sam. We do appreciate all of the city council, everybody that came by and helped, our crew, volunteers, like Matthew Daniels, he did a wonderful job coming out and helping out. Ms. Paul, Mr. Rose, Mac, that's my guy right there. He like I said, he just did a great job. I appreciate Tank. He was on it. What's his name? What's his name? Was right here? Chase.
Mr.
Yeah. I couldn't recognize him. He had his baseball hat on, but he did a good job. And so what we want to do is we want to present this banner to the city for our first annual Marque celebration.
And Catherine too, she was helping us out.
Oh yeah, Miss
Kathleen.
Yes.
Miss Kathleen.
And then the beautiful young lady in the back, she came out.
Miss Mary.
Yeah. So we want to present this to the city.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And because we appreciate all y'all.
Let's go take a
We're looking
picture.
forward to this.
Oh, that's wonderful, Wayne.
Thank you so
Let
much.
us all do it together. Let us all do it together. Come on, Tracy. No, let's all do it together.
Mayor Sam wants photos.
Photo ops, okay.
Come on. Just give us a minute. Come on, okay. Okay. You wanna come down and get
You
it?
want me to come down there and get it? I'll come.
Yeah.
Come on,
Can we? I was like, I want to get in that photo. This is a big muffin.
Yes, you're part of this community. Come on, girls.
Yes.
Ms. Powell and Ms. Rose, come on.
Wait.
Come on, man. Matt, I need Matt. Come on, Matt. Come on, Matt. Come on, Matt. Hurry up.
Matt, you look bad. I'm getting right now.
Where you going?
Solitary.
Three, everybody say money. Alright, alright, one more time, money. Alright, I'm gonna do it one more time, just in case. Juneteenth, that'll work. See if I got him. Colleen is there. Colleen is
And you know, I wish you could stand here.
Yeah, I want to interview. I'm behind the camera. Catherine, come on up here, Catherine. Catherine, hurry up. Come on. Wait a minute, please. Come on up here.
Come on, Best Saber.
Hey.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Juneteenth. Thank you.
Won't he do it? I almost forgot that was there. Got the challenge.
Got one more speaker this evening, Mr. Clarence Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell.
Good evening, City Council
Evening.
and Mayor and everybody. The reason why I'm here for, the city got an ordinance about people hauling junk from other people's neighborhoods and occupying their home or their home residence as a junkyard. And then they strip the metal or whatever they want. Then they take the metal, do whatever they want to do with it. That's their business. But you don't bring other people's junk and discard it in front of people's yards where they have issues backing in and out of their driveways and stuff like that. Which I have them here, which I ain't got but a couple of minutes, but it states that you're not allowed to have that if it's within 250 feet from a person's residence. Well, I'm well within 250 feet of that. And this is starting to get out of hand. Okay? And also, we've been having this drainage issue. Right now, it's not in front of my house, but it's the house next to me. There's a sewer leak. And there's sewer that does not drain. The water does not drain. And this is something I've been trying to address when they had the other city manager, and nothing was done. The person was supposed to get in contact with me. The person never did get in contact with me. I even have that, the letter that the young lady, the secretary, when she wrote out the stuff out in order for her to get in contact with me. That was way back in January. Here we are in July, and there's nothing that's been done. And if you walk out there right now, you smell the sewage. I have pictures of the ditch that you see the sewage, and it's more than a foot in deep. It's like this, and it's pitiful. Something needs to be done. And, I know y'all can't respond back, but I'd like to get back with you on that, and I'd like to get back with Chase also on that also. That's a health issue. That's a health issue also with all the person bringing all this junk and stuff. And it's an issue with impeding my safety or anybody that's backing out of my driveway from that junk. Something needs to be done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Got it.
Item number 6 is the consent agenda. Anyone wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 7A, conduct public, Madam Clerk, will you call the time, please?
6:30, 23.
6:23, we will close the regular meeting, open up the public hearing, conduct public hearing to hear public input regarding adopting resolution number R-2019-003, authorizing and creating the trails at Woodhaven Lakes Public Improvement District Number 4 within the corporate limits of the city of Lamarque. This public hearing has remained open since January 14th, 2019. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Going once, twice, 3 times. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to close finally this public hearing. If you'll call the time, please.
6:24.
6:24, we'll close that public hearing, and we'll move to the next public hearing beginning at 6:24, item B. Conduct public hearing to hear public input regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-005, replacing section 44-2, curfew for minors, chapter 44 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lamarque, Texas, and in its place, adopting a new section 44-2, establishing a curfew for any person under the age of 17 years during certain hours. Anyone wishing to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Geraldine Sam, and I live at 2412 Stonewall Street here in Lamarque. And I am for the curfew. I think that it needs to be tweaked a little bit because our children are afraid when they see police and a lot of things that have been happening with police. So I was thinking of if there's a possibility of there being such a place that's developed called a safe spot that the police can take our children to. We have to have a curfew. I've seen children just being very destructive that were not in school, like riding with the Marque on my neighbor's house, and they should have been in school, been expelled. Children late at night, there's no reason for a child to be out late at night unless they're working, unless they like 17 or somewhere like that, 18 years old, and they're working and doing something. But what are you doing out at that time of night? And I've seen and heard a lot of cars being broken into, a lot of houses being vandalized, beside my neighbor's house being vandalized because of children not having a curfew. And the children on my street, I had to tell them there is a curfew. And if the police catch you, they will arrest you. So, I'm just saying that we have to do something to curtail some of the behavior that our children are exhibiting nowadays. I'm not saying that, on a lot of the videos you see where police are slamming children to the ground. That's not what I want done. Or the way that a lot of police in other cities are mistreating children. I'm saying let our city be an example, a set of precedents for other cities on how we treat our young people if we catch them after curfew. I mean, we've got to set an example some way, somehow. But I am for the curfew. I just don't see any reason that children should not be at home. They should be doing homework or should be doing something constructive beside being out on the street destroying other people's property. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Welcome.
Thank you and good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. I too am certainly for that ordinance. In the meeting in which I attended with the chief and some others, community people and Ministerial Alliance, we talked about this ordinance, the ordinance, and I believe we were passed out a draft of the ordinance as is. And in our conversation, I became concerned because we were somehow comparing our population with the population of Austin, the way it was stated, that Austin, the city of Austin, was going to drop theirs or take a look at it, review it, which is what they're supposed to do. And in the process of doing that, they won't have it, but I think the strategy is for them to compare what happened when it was in force and what happens when it's not in force. But we, I think, are wrong to compare our population to Austin. It's totally different. It's worse than apples and oranges. It's worse than that comparison. So I am for it. Our children need it. What I miss the most, remember that commercial that used to come on at 10 p.m.? It's 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. Where are your children? I wish somebody would bring it back. And I would wish that it would raise the consciousness of some of our parents. Not all, but some. And as Reverend Daniels was saying, all of this is tied in also to school and how children need to be at home so that they can do their schoolwork. Have you all seen our scores? They're horrible, and they need to be raised. And I think with this ordinance, almost as is, but I appreciated your comment too, that I saw, that I read in the paper, that one word, interrogation for parents, that the police would interrogate the parents. We don't need interrogation, but we do need to question our parents. And I do want to know, where are their children at 10 o'clock? Thank you. Ma'am? Yes. What's your name? Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Edna Kerrville, and I live at 7401 Oriole Street, Texas City, Texas. Been there for 100 years.
Thank you, Ms. Gerber. Anyone else? Yes.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah, I'll get to you as soon as I get to
Oh, ladies first.
ladies first. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mandolin Salazar, and I am with a new coalition that has started that will be organizing a youth leadership conference at the College of the Mainland, fall of 2020. And I'm not here really to support or against it, but I will tell you that I have over 29 years experience in working with youth and community engagement. And actually for about 13 years, I was a youth minister. And what I will say when I hear about curfews, and I've actually lived in communities where these curfews were implemented and actually were challenged in courts. So there has been some challenged, whether it's made it to Texas, I'm not sure. However, our focus is really about looking at the demographics of our youth here in our schools. And so what I would ask is that before any curfew or any of that, obviously community safety is very important, is that the city really also give this an opportunity for us to be looking at what we can do, what can be done to address the needs of the youth. There are very specific reasons as to maybe why children are out late at night. There is very specific reasons when we look at the achievement gap, what's happening in the schools, why we have students that are not in school. So what I ask is before we start looking at punitive action with specifically the community here, that you at least give some of the efforts that some of us here in the community are doing, which is to establish the infrastructure, which I see that we do not have in regards to this youth conference. Our focus is going to be to target very specific school districts, one of them being that serves students here in Lamarck, and specifically focusing on giving them ideas and opportunities about what to see for themselves in the future. So that is really what I'm here and that I'm asking, is that we really just stop and think this is a unique opportunity, I think, for all of us to really look at some other options, because, you know, we're not going to incarcerate our ways out of this. We need to establish some solutions. And I'm not aware of really any outreach from some of the people that I'm working with, that there was any meetings with parents or individuals. So I am open to talking to whoever, whether it's the chief, I know I've seen him at some different events, but I'm happy to share some of my ideas and some other strategies, and possibly even funding with programs, if that is an interest, that would focus on serving the needs and hopefully addressing maybe some of these youth being out there, you know, when they shouldn't. So that's all I'm asking, is that we really look at this and that we don't just start trying to punish kids when we haven't had an opportunity to really look at some other options. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Caldwell.
I applaud everybody that's in favor of some type of curfew or something for these youth, because something really needs to be done, but it starts at home and it starts with our community leaders, which are preachers, ministers, and stuff like that, okay? But it also starts at home. If the parents are not in church, hey, where they gonna learn it? Where they gonna find out what is there to be done? To punish a child and to punish the parent may be working, okay? Both parents may be working on, they may come from single family homes, okay? That's where a problem comes right there. But when school time starts, which is gonna be next month, when these kids get out of school, heck, I mean, I know we have an ordinance or something when it comes with people dressing. These kids right there, they pants and stuff, and I'm talking about both male and females, you seeing all their drawers and everything. That right there is an ordinance that needs, that's where it starts right there. And then we can start working on all this other stuff. There are parties and stuff that these kids have, these block parties, and our police officers, they are stressed because we're undermanned. And when they throw these block parties and stuff, and you trying to get home to your home and stuff, these kids will cuss you out and call you everything except a child of God. And you trying to make it to your house. So, you know, that really needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. And that's the honest to God truth. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Mayor, Council, my name Matthew Daniels, address 6809 Woodrow, Tech City, Texas, 77591. I don't want to take up too much of the time. I just wanted to weigh in on the topic. I personally feel as if the curfew, it is needed. Now, I took some time to look it up online and read the language in the curfew because I read in the newspaper what some of the language was contested. Now, where I do agree with some of the language needs to be maybe changed, maybe updated, it also already has clauses in it that provides for if these children have a legitimate reason for being out past the curfew, then they are not in violation of the curfew. But one thing I also want to point out is that sometimes parents need help. And when you live in a day and age when you may have a child that's 15, 16 years old that does not want to listen to their parents, and let's say that they do go out to get into a dangerous situation in the middle of the night, and if a parent was to go and physically get that child, then you run the risk of CPS, the police being called on that parent, and the age that we're living in now is hard to physically deal with these out of control children. So you do need some type of help and you do need some type of assistance. From the language that I did see in it, in the ordinance, I didn't see that the children were going to be incarcerated if they were caught out past the curfew. I seen that there was some options for a warning if it was the first time, fines, and I believe that if they were repeat offenders doing it 3 times or more, then the juvenile justice system may be involved in the handling of that child. But I can say 100%, it's a lot of things that are going on at that time of night that 14, 15, 16-year-olds do not need to be a part of, because you can have some individuals that may be the criminal element in our community who will prey on those children. And lastly, real quick, because I don't want to hold up too much time, I just would like to also say that the community will be watching. I'm for the ordinance. I think it should stay in place, but the community will be watching if these police officers decide to abuse this and use this as a reason to harass our children. The community will voice their opinion if it comes to that, but we at least have to have something in place to help these parents and to keep these children safe.
Thank you, sir. We're going to be watching as well. Anyone else? Anyone on council wish to speak?
Yeah.
Please.
Well, is this the time I should speak? I guess this is the time I should speak. So, obviously we've talked a lot about this in our past meetings, and I have met with a lot of folks in my district and folks not in my district, talked with a lot of different people, and done more and more research than even the first time this popped up several months ago. And I'd like it known that I think curfews are a good thing. I think a curfew is a no-brainer in terms of, I mean, I'm currently expecting a child. There will certainly be a curfew in my house. My concerns over a curfew ordinance completely stemmed from the idea that simply passing an ordinance that says we will have a curfew and these things will happen doesn't make the community safer. It's like saying that the problem of children who are out at night getting up to no good and putting themselves in danger and potentially putting other people in danger is akin to having a wound. It's akin to having a knife in your side, right? Saying, well, we should pull that knife out, that doesn't make you any better. Saying we should pull that knife out, and to make sure you don't bleed out, we're going to get you medical care, we're going to stitch you up, we're going to get you antibiotics, and we're going to get you someone to help you through that so that you heal completely. So what I feel is that there are ways to address this curfew and make it far more solid and something that we can track I like data. I like the idea of us being able to look at this and adequately reflect on, okay, we've implemented it with certain strictures. How has it affected the community? What has the feedback been from the people who live in our neighborhoods, the people who have children, the people who don't have children, the officers? You know, how has their well-being been affected by this? How has our children's well-being been affected by this? I consider certain things that we could do, ways that we could adequately address the lofty, big problem of making sure we make our kids safer, because yeah, kids should be at home. I completely agree. I've never saw the commercial of where are your kids at 10 o'clock at night, but it's a dang good message. We should know. But just what's important to me is that we understand that there has to be more that goes along with it to give it a real backbone, and a backbone that has soft hands with some of our kids who, as it was mentioned, are some of the most vulnerable that we have in our community. I have a few ideas.
You want to hold those when we come to the vote during discussion? Okay.
I would love that.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
I will. I want to thank everybody for showing up and their support of it. This is probably about the third meeting that we've gone through with this. And as we have stated on this curfew, we've had this for over 50 years within this community, yet it lapsed. I grew up under a curfew law. They're a tool. It is a tool. And yes, there are concerns. There's concerns about any ordinance being abused, and that's up to you and me and everyone else. We're all neighbors, and if we have a problem, then we will correct it. I like Reverend Daniel's meetings that will have that. I think that has gone a long way. We've done a lot to improve and make sure that we don't have these abuses here, and if something pops up, we're gonna make sure it doesn't, or we're gonna correct it. But the curfew is a tool. It's a tool for parents. I'm a parent. I'm a grandparent, the same as the rest of y'all. And we want just what's best for our kids. And so this provides a tool for the police, not to arrest. You know, and that's the whole deal. It gives them the opportunity to stop. It gives them an opportunity to call the parents and get things straightened out. That's the whole idea, is to not victimize our students, our children. Mayor Pro Tem has made some very positive changes to the verbiage so that it doesn't sound that way, and that's great. And I think with the passage of this, we'll be back on track. Mayor Pro Tem also suggested another training video, very much like what we did with the traffic stop, and I want to thank him for that. It's an excellent idea. But again, I want to thank everybody for their support on this, where it's all about all of our kids.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to our next public hearing, conduct public hearing to hear public input regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-008, amending Chapter 68, Article 5, Section 68-138B of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lamarque, Texas, to adopt the revised drought contingency plan completed by LJA Engineering. Anyone wishing to speak? Evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. David Pennington, 924 Cypress. I have some questions on this contingency plan here. Under Section 2, Public Involvement, it states, opportunity for the public to provide input into the preparation of the plan was provided by the city by means of scheduling a meeting to receive comments, input, notifying the public by notices in the local newspaper, postings at City Hall, and by utilizing the local radio stations. I was wondering when all this took place. when was the meeting held?
Mr. Jackson, could you have Robin address
Can you
the
hold on here?
postings?
You know, when,
As far as the postings go, by law, we post, the public hearing notice in the newspaper, for the second reading of the ordinance, which was posted before this meeting tonight. As far as letters going out, that, we don't normally do that. We were within our 10-day posting period, we've followed those guidelines.
That was for the public hearing for this meeting and for the first reading. But it says here, by means of scheduling a meeting to receive comments, input. Now, when was that meeting held?
I think we're in it now.
But you're getting ready to vote on it tonight.
And aren't you having input?
I'm having input, but if there's any changes, I mean, there's some things in here that I'm not sure the public really knows about. For instance, under stage 6 response, water allocation. Now, I understand stage 6 is going to be very severe. Everybody's going to be rationing their water. I totally understand that. But it says here, single-family residential customers, the allocation in residential water customers residing in single-family dwelling shall be as follows: 1 to 2 people, 6,000 gallons a month; 3 to 4, 7,000; 5 to 6, 8,000; 7 to 8, 9,000; and 9 to 10, 10,000; and 11 or more, 12,000. How many people here knew there was going to be that allocation? Also, it is assumed that a particular customer's household is comprised of 2 persons unless the customer notifies the city of a greater number of persons per household on a form prescribed by the Director of Public Works. How many people knew about that?
Mr. Pennington, could you tell me again what, I want to be able to refer directly to what you're looking at?
In your packet, page 56.
Thank you.
And also, along with this rationing, there's going to be a surcharge. Residential water customers shall pay the following surcharges: $100 for the first 1,000 gallons over the allocation, $200 for the second 1,000 gallons over the allocation, $300 for the third 1,000 gallons over allocation, and $400 for each 1,000 gallons over that allocation. Surcharges to be cumulative. That means if you go over your allocation by 4,000 gallons, you're going to have $1,000 added to your water bill. How many people knew that? Mayor, it appears that the public has not really been informed about this contingency plan as Section 2 calls for. And I fear that if you're going to expect the people to follow and abide by these rules that's getting ready to be passed by this contingency plan, then city council and city staff should also be under these rules and make sure the public is well aware of this plan before it's passed.
Mr. Jackson, would you like to address that?
yeah, first of all, so all the guidelines that are in here, those aren't guidelines we came up with. Those are guidelines that are in line with our Gulf Coast Water Authority permit that we have from them. So if they go into drought contingency, doesn't matter whether we like it, you like it, or anybody else, like, this is what the city is going to be charged in those, and they have triggers that tell us when we have to go into those stages. This isn't something we get to pick. This is straight out of the permit that we already have, out of the contract we already have.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not that we just sat around and came up with a bunch of numbers. It's that's what our contract says already. Previously, under the Gulf Coast Water contract, in drought contingency, you've been allowed to go over your appropriation. Based on new rules that they've been given, you're not allowed to go over your drought appropriation. So it's not like in times before, if we went into drought contingency and we went over it, yeah, we paid for it, but we were allowed to go over. Now, in drought contingency, if we get to the point where we go over, they're going to shut the valve off. So the penalties that are in here are in line with the penalties that they provided to get people to pay attention to it, and not just ignore it, because when we went into the last time we had to go into drought contingency, it was ignored. and people just went ahead and continued pumping. We went over quite a bit during that time.
And may I, so to go back to the first issue that you brought up, Mr. Pennington, was the notification of the public element?
That
Were
would
you
be on
talking about what's on
section 2, page 45 of your packet.
page 45?
Public involvement.
Not the section on.
Yeah.
It's on page 45 of your
45.
packet.
So section 2.
Yes, public involvement.
Scheduling meetings to receive comments. Input. Notify nurses and persons as helpful. And which ones are you saying didn't happen?
Well, I'm just saying, it seems like this should have happened before this plan actually came before council, or at least after the first reading. There should have been a public meeting to explain this to everyone. And there should have been, according to what it says here, there should have been a little more information passed out.
And you're saying that the last 3 meetings that we've had with this on the agenda don't satisfy that?
This is the first public hearing for this item.
That's,
Second.
that's not, I believe it's the second.
Yeah, this is a second hearing, but it's the first public hearing. You don't have a public hearing on the first reading.
But we have public comment at that meeting.
Okay.
And one other thing, Mayor, I want to add in on this. So the drought contingency plan is not something that we do because we want to. It's a TCEQ requirement. And they're very specific in the things that have to be in there. So every city, regardless of what city it is, hires a consultant to put these plans together. Because if you tried to have a public meeting and sit down with a bunch of people and write this plan, you're never even going to come close to what TCEQ requires. So you send it to a consultant, have a consultant, they look at your water contracts, they look at previous year's deliveries, they look at the last time the drought, that you had to go into drought contingency, they look at all those things. They draft an original plan for you to look at so that it alleviates it alleviates you missing anything, alleviates the need for you to put a bunch of work into it and basically have to go back in and scrap it and start all over again. So having the draft plan done when you come into your first public hearing is normal. That's normal procedure on a drought contingency plan or any of the other plans, any of the other stuff that comes through TCEQ.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is the city pays $2,500 for this plan and y'all just go through the motions of passing it. That's basically what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that alleviates probably $7,500 in additional costs of having a bunch of meetings and everybody's saying what they want, but that doesn't really go into the plan anyway. So they set up a plan that they know TCEQ will approve. Okay. And then the public gets it through our first reading, second reading. If they have comments or concerns, they can come in. Quite honestly, though, if your concern is the cost, I don't know that we can do anything about that because that's based on the contract that we have for our water delivery.
I understand that. I was just thinking that there's not a lot of public information about this plan out there right now. So, thank you.
Thank you. If this is something that you have to abide by, when is council going to put it out publicly so that everyone knows about it, not just those who are here at the meeting?
It's posted on the website.
It'll be placed on our website.
It's been posted.
And secondly, also, in the past discussions on this, we've already removed some sections based on Mr. Pennington's request, on the toilet issues that for inspection. So we've already changed this thing, but the basics on here as far as your levels and that you have to go through, this is region wide. We are all vying for the same water. And as our kids reach our age, it's going to be totally different in this world about water supply. It is critical. We have already, as we covered on Saturday, we've already exceeded our water supply limit 3 times last year.
And how much is that from leaks that are not?
No, we've made we still have some and we've made repairs and we're seeing the positive impact of the water meters. But I'm just saying that our growth is happening. There's another 7 million gallons that is available for all of the entities within not just Galveston County, isn't it? Is it just Galveston
No,
County?
Galveston, Brazoria, and it's a
entire
whole
Yeah,
region.
and this entire region, and everybody's put in for additional allocation, which we have to pay for. And then there'll be a future one, and then after that, they're saying, there's no more. You know, so we're facing some tough things.
And if I may, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Hill,
That's
go
okay.
ahead.
I just have a question and concern. You said that, I'm sorry, Mayor and Council, you said that it's gonna be placed on the webpage. I personally would like to see it placed in everyone's water bill, not just, on the webpage, because a lot of people are not gonna look at the webpage. I don't look at your webpage every day. Or, once, I look at it when it's coming into council time and there are some things happening in the community that I want to see. But if it's in my water bill, I read everything that comes into my water bill. And so I'm asking that with this contingency plan, I didn't have no idea about the surcharges. I do know that we have drought issues. I was aware of that. But I would like to see so that the community will know, so the people that are gonna be affected would know, you know, we could have it placed in our monthly water bills and let someone know that this is coming about so that we'll all be on the same page and no one can say that they didn't know because it's in the water. Now, whether they read it out the water bill, that's not your problem, but, you know, if you put it in there, they should read it.
Thank you.
Excellent idea, Ms. Sam. I think we've got inside Lamarck also, we can put the basics in there that capture it, cause it's multi-pages. You know, and with, to highlight it, to bring it to everybody's attention with the link to where they can get to it if they want the entire thing.
And maybe it could be on a pink sheet of paper, green sheet of paper, I
Yeah.
don't care the water bill. It could be a blue, you know, purple.
Something that you just don't throw in the trash.
You know, a purple sheet of paper, I don't care, but I'm just saying a different color from the water bill.
And if I may, I just want to revisit Mr. Pennington. I mean, you know, I think you're very right in making sure that, you know, the idea that all citizens get a chance to adequately review something that they will be affected by. Hopefully not, but I mean, the fact of the matter is those are the kinds of things we can't control, is when we go into drought and when we are in the opposite of drought, but only we can plan for contingencies. I was just trying to make it clear that, you know, this has come before us. This has been on the agenda. We have talked about this many times. We've made changes based on your suggestions, which I think were wise, and we've debated them. And I've said many times that, you know, I don't think this is strict enough, and I sort of wish we operated on this drought contingency all the time, honestly. And, you know, that's my opinion, and it doesn't need to be anybody else's opinion, but as my colleague said, you know, we are operating on, pardon the water pun, but thin ice when it comes to water usage. It's a precious resource that we waste constantly as individuals, as municipalities, in all kinds of ways, and this is an important type of document to make sure that we're being wise and judicious. But I want to make it clear that it has come before us several times. There's been lots of opportunity to discuss. And I also think that doesn't mean we're done. And I think that there's plenty of people, as you said, who have no clue. And we should continue to make sure that people know so that it's not, they don't feel blindsided. And they continue to have the opportunity to comment on it and let us know. I think it's a great idea to have some elements of it. I mean, it's a pretty hefty document. Maybe not in every water bill for a while, but like continuing to let people know. I think that's a great idea.
Just for clarification, what the changes that were made were on the water conservation plan, not on the drought contingency.
I understand, but you're right, the one about the toilets was on water conservation, but drought contingency was all part of, that was all available at the same time. Okay.
Eric, can I add a couple more things?
Yes, sir.
Two other things that I would kind of like to add into this so that we're pretty clear on this. You know, stage 6, as you said, you know, if we get to the point where we're ever in stage 6, we've got so many other issues that we're going to be worried about that it'll be a whole different story. You know, when something like the Parks Master Plan, which will be starting sometime pretty soon, a comprehensive plan for the city, something like that, that public input process is a whole lot different because it's not etched in stone by an agency what has to be in that plan. So you do get to have, and we will, when we start the Parks Master Plan, we'll have a number of public meetings where we go out and talk to everybody, you know, what do you want the park in your neighborhood to look like? What do you want the park, you know, just because you live over here, you know, that area may have a lot of younger kids and they may want to see, you know, more stuff for little kids in those parks, to where another side of town, the kids may be older and they may maybe want something different. So those, getting that a lot of that outside input up front before you even draft the plan, then it's important. Something like this, because it's so rigid and there's not a lot we can, I mean, there's not much we can't do, because TCEQ requires everything that's in here. So that's why the public process in this one is more along the lines of comments during the first reading, the hearing during the second reading, because we couldn't draft our own because it wouldn't have met the TCEQ requirements. And then going back to the comment on you know, if we're short on water, are we addressing leaking water lines, whatever? This guy's chasing his crew out there addressing that stuff every day. You need to keep in mind the infrastructure in this town's 70 years old. It's gonna leak until the whole thing is replaced. You know, the money has not been put into making those big wholesale repairs, and that's part of what we have. And so until we get to the point where we're putting the money in those big wholesale repairs, every time you fix one weak spot, sometimes it develops 3 or 4 more. You can ask Chase. Sometimes you got those clay lines and you fix one spot and you cause 5 more leaks because you move the ground and it just continues to crumble. So they are working on that stuff diligently. It just, there's a lot to be fixed out there. And that's all I have there.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I got one question. When it comes to, y'all say y'all have to purchase water from the Gulf Coast Water Authority. Okay, I live in a single house, okay, and I have several friends who live in the general area, but not necessarily Lamar. And I also asked this question once before. Why is Lamar water is so high than versus Texas City?
Want to address that? Primarily because it's the same rate for everybody.
Well, my buddy, for instance, I'm just using him as an example. He lives in a household with 3 grandkids, and he's like, your water bill is that much, and you live by yourself. Yep.
So the base rate here has always been the same for everybody, regardless of household size or anything else, and most people probably don't go above that base rate. One of the things, though, if your water bill is significantly higher than everybody around you, might check to make sure you don't have a leak.
No, I don't have any leaks, nothing like that. And I understand that we did raise, I think 3 or 4 months ago, we did raise the price of water because of adding new equipment for waste treatment.
Oh, that was the new meters. That was the additional cost was the new meters.
But we did mention that we did need to raise the price also because we need for waste treatment because of the new housing additions, you know, residents and stuff like that. Think like Delaney up in that area, they got a new housing addition that's part of Marque and everything. So that's gonna be more water, that's gonna be more waste and everything, and we don't have facilities and stuff to treat that waste. And I understand we do have to raise the price on that, but still, I'm like, why is it so high?
We're kind of getting off the subject here.
Well, we'll do our best to keep it down, but you have to remember Texas City has one of the largest industrial complexes in the world. And quite frankly, they have more money than Lamar. And so to keep up with what we have to do, we have to charge what we charge. And that's the bottom line.
That's the only answer I want to hear, that right there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mayor, I think we still paying debt on that treatment plant too.
Yes, sir. And we, in order to stop leakage and to pinpoint leakage, Mr. Osteen, we did change it to a new metering system. And we have found many substantial leakage problems because we bought those new meters. And that's what the raise was for, to help pay for those new meters in the bond. Thank you. Anyone else? Next is to conduct a public hearing to hear public input regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-009, amending Article 3, speed regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lamarck, Texas, Section 62-88, reducing the speed limit on the northbound main lanes and southbound main lanes of IH 45 from 65 miles an hour to 55 miles per hour, and reducing the speed limit on the northbound frontage road and the southbound frontage road from 50 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour until the completion of the freeway expansion project by Texas Department of Transportation. Anyone wishing to speak?
I do know nothing to that. It shall say I'm speaking on everything, but I do have some concerns on that one. And I just want to know, I'm sorry, Mayor and Council, when will the community know about these changes, and will this become a speed trap in our city? I know that, this is part of the way we're the gateway to Galveston or whatever we call ourselves. But we have to make sure that this is not a speed trap for our citizens, our way of making money off of our citizens. DPS is already atrocious, right, in this little area of Lamarck. And I'm just concerned that with the speed limit going that low, that it'll be a speed trap for our city. And I just want the community to know, again, that this is coming. So how are we gonna notify them that this is coming so that, we're still going 65 and then we've switched it to
Yes, ma'am.
55. I'm on the feeder and I'm going 50, to go to Walmart, and then I got a ticket. So we have to know something. I mean,
Yes, ma'am, I understand. It's a valid question.
Yeah.
The speed limit will be posted, and this is actually during the construction, which will begin in August. I believe they're due to start, and they're a little bit ahead of schedule, which for TxDOT is a miracle within itself. And the speed limits will be posted. Mr. Jackson, would you like to ask Chief Jackson if this is going to be a speed trap?
Before I ask Chief Jackson to let you know it's not gonna be a speed trap, we'll probably put this inside Lamarck too. I think it's already lined up to be in there, so everybody will see the dates and the changes in there as well. 1, 2, we have no control over those Texas Department of Public Safety guys. We can't control them. And 3, I'll let Chief Jackson.
Right. Our primary responsibility, and as far as law enforcement in the city, is patrolling the streets. We rarely, I'm not going to say we never, but we rarely go out on the freeway. The vast majority of enforcement efforts on the freeway is going to be done by the Department of Public Safety and the Galveston County Sheriff's Office. We're not going to be out there. It's not going to be a speed trap for us, I assure you. The only reason this is being done is because TxDOT has requested the city enact the ordinance in order to lower the speed limit during the construction process. And if you've driven through Dickinson right now, you realize how important it is to reduce the speed limit on 45. They have had a big increase in crashes along 45 up there in Dickinson, so it's very important to have this. I can guarantee you it's not going to be a speed trap. I can guarantee you that today, right now. So that's not going to happen. Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
One other thing added to that, there's 2 ways for that speed limit to be changed during construction. One is if the city passes an ordinance to do it. If the city doesn't proactively do the ordinance, TxDOT goes before their board and they can get it done. It gets done one way or another. So it was more productive for us to work with TxDOT to do it than to make them go to their board and do it by order. Yeah, we're done. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Next item, conduct public hearing to hear public. Yes, sir.
Yes, we just, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I'm here for the council, Chief Jackson, Chief Jackson. For the safety and security for the people that are working out there on the highway, it is prudent that you slow the cars down. And also for, citizens of Lamarck. It's a good thing for you guys to do that now, to get ahead of that. For when it starts, people already know. So, it's people going 100 miles an hour, and you got people out there working. They hit someone, we're going to be working on a fatality accident.
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Thank you, Constable. Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, moving on, conduct public hearing to hear public input regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019, 2022-0010, approving a road right-of-way abandonment of a portion of a right-of-way road easement being a tract of land being a part of the road right-of-way on the east side of Super City Subdivision Number 2, according to the map or plat thereof recorded in volume 254, page 60, in the office of the county clerk of the Galveston County, Texas, and part of the road right-of-way on the west side of the Daughtry Survey Number 4, out of the Marchand subdivision in the Stephen F. Austin League Number 4, according to the map or plat of Marchand subdivision recorded in volume 254-A, page 50, in the office of the county clerk of Galveston County, Texas, Walker Street, as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Felt like I was speaking in tongues, Miss Sam. That was a lot to read. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none. Moving on to conduct public hearing to hear public input regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-0011, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 1 in general of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Lamarck, Texas, by adding a new Section 2-9, establishing procedures for placing items on the agenda. Anyone wishing to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Will citizens be allowed to place items on the agenda under this new ordinance?
Always welcome to contact the city manager, mayor, or your council person, and if they can get a partner, one of their colleagues to do that. It says that 2 council members may do that, the city manager may do that, or I believe the mayor may place that. I've never refused anyone anything on the agenda in my tenure here, so yes, ma'am. And I don't think any council person has either. Anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing none, moving on. If you'll call the time, Madam Clerk.
7:12.
7:12, we'll move out of the public hearings, reopen the regular meeting. Under 8A, old business, discussion, possible action regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-005, replacing section 44-2, curfew for minors, chapter 44 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lamarck, Texas, and in its place, adopting a new section 44-2, establishing a curfew for any person under the age of 17 years during certain hours. I'll entertain a motion.
So move. Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes. You want to?
Yes.
I'll go, and then you.
You go, then I'll go.
Certainly, there's been some discussion about this item. It's been, this year, it has been controversial, unlike in other years. And it seems like the controversy centers around 3 things, Mayor. I think that first and foremost, it centers around the fact that we don't want our children to be put in the criminal justice system or in any way to be characterized as criminals or potential criminals. And I understand that. Certainly, we have cleaned the language up in this ordinance to ensure that this ordinance directs our police department to view our children as assets and not liabilities. That we are looking for our children to be protected and not prosecuted unless they have been found guilty of a crime. Secondly, I think that this ordinance, the worry or the concern speaks to our fear of law enforcement. And it's been documented that there is a reason in many cities to fear their law enforcement. I don't know that there has been any documentation in our city that would lend itself that we should fear our law enforcement. And if there has been, then I stand corrected. But more importantly, what we're saying as a society is that we would rather curtail our behavior than to demand that our police department be better. And I just think that if we are, as taxpayers, if we're paying our police department to protect us, then we ought to expect them to protect us and to protect our children. I think it's fair that we ought to expect them to do that and do that in a way
that would make us feel good about how they are going about the process of protecting our children. And I think that we can do that. I think that as a society, we should demand more of our police department. We should expect more of our police department. These days and times in society, we are looking at our police department as the villain, and as folks that are harmful and abusive. And certainly in the African American community, we have a good reason to believe that. But that does not mean that we should not expect them to rise to the level of the oath that they have taken, and they ought to protect us. And I believe that Chief Jackson and his force will protect our children instead of prosecute them. Lastly, the reason I believe that this ordinance is causing us concern, Casey stated earlier, we don't know. There's no way for us to quantify whether or not this ordinance is making us safer. And I don't think that, even though I accept the amendment as friendly, and I'm excited about the amendment, I don't know that we'll ever be able to quantify whether or not this ordinance makes us safer, because we don't know what was in the heart of the person who was looking at on their front lawn at someone who was underage, potentially causing them grief. We don't know if they would have did something different than pick up the phone and call the police knowing that there was a curfew ordinance in place, or if they would have tried to take matters in their own hands. And we'll never know the answers to those questions. So I don't know if it's going to make us safer. But I just know that the police department should be expected to do more, and I think that they're ready to do more. So I'm going to vote for this ordinance, and I expect Casey to make an amendment, and I'm going to accept that amendment.
Thank you, Councilman Bell. I wholeheartedly agree with what you said, and without belaboring the point too much, I want to reiterate that all of my concern over this has stemmed completely not from a distrust in our police force. In my time here, Chief Jackson and every officer that I've met has demonstrated time and time again that they are committed to policing ethically and really, truly concerned with the community. And they've helped teach me about our community, about things that I didn't know. They've offered new information. They are, the police force, as employees of the city, are some of the people that get to see things on the ground in a way that I will never, ever see. And I trust when I'm told that there are real reasons, apart from just, well, we've always had this ordinance, that we need it. You have to trust those you work with. You have to trust those who work for your city. They work for me too. Just as much as I try to work for them and everyone who's in my district and all of our constituents, it's all about trust. And so my concerns come from only trying to strengthen that trust through certain measures that, like I said earlier, give this more backbone, as well as sensitivity and real, quantifiable in certain cases, and an attempt to put scrutinizing eyes on things that, when we're talking about our children, that's what it's about, right? We have to scrutinize to ensure that everyone is as safe as possible. So I do have a few suggestions for things that would make me feel so much better about this. And some of them are just building on some of the great suggestions that Councilman Bell made. I'll start with, I'd really like to see a specific timeline attached to these public hearings that are required. It's mentioned in the language already that there will be regular public hearings. And I think, I should also say that in case anyone is wondering whether when you reach out to your council person, or you reach out to Chief Jackson, or you reach out to the city manager, if those things get talked about, or if they just sort of disappear into the ether, I'm here to tell you that there's been a lot of talk about this, and I am very grateful to our city manager and incredibly grateful to Chief Jackson for taking the time to talk to me, hear out my concerns, which some were mine and some came from a lot of phone calls that I received. And so it's my job to relay those concerns. So thank you. But yeah, I'd like to see a specific timeline so the public hearings, it's not just a vague, they'll happen, but they'll happen every year in this month. Tink, this language is this, so do you want me to propose this exact language? That's what we talked about, okay. So, I'd like for us to provide for an annual report with an effective date. I'd also, that would happen every year within the 3-year period that the ordinance covers before it has to come up for review again. And at those public hearings, I'd like certain data to be available, which would include the number of interactions with minors of the PD, and that means interactions, right? So that means not just if they were charged with anything, if they were taken back to the parents, interactions. Number of accidents involving minors, and the number of crimes involving minors. Because, as you said, Keith, that won't tell us the whole picture by a long shot, because we can't see inside. It's way too big, it's too many people, it's too tangled a web. But it does give us some data, it does give us a baseline for us to say every year, okay, well, what's happened from year to year, and what could we do better? And by looking at this, we'll also find out how many children were picked up and taken back home, and was it a positive interaction, was it a negative interaction? How many children were taken to CPS because they couldn't be taken back to their home because it was an unsafe situation, and the best thing the PD could do was to take them somewhere else. I mean, that is valuable information, and as was mentioned earlier, there are lots of things we need to do to build infrastructure that creates safe spaces. And I believe this data would help inform that. And two additional things. I'd like to see, for the well-being of our officers and the well-being of these minors, more specific training, particularly in the practice of de-escalation and with mental health crisis intervention. My reasons for that, I mean, de-escalation is a big buzzword, right? It's been out a lot in the last several years. It's a good one, I believe, but I think it's also one that I want to clarify and put a fine point on. It is not because I imagine our PD are going out there and all they're doing is bullying a child if they find them at night, and I want them to learn how not to do that. That's not at all what I think. What I want is for our police officers to be as equipped as possible with the best tools so that they are safe and that the children are safe, and that they take that safety with them everywhere they go. And de-escalation training is not just a tool, right? It's an end result. And I think there's lots of tools to be learned in order to reach that end result. So I'd like to see specific de-escalation focused training, and in addition, mental health crisis intervention training, some of which we discussed, Chief, and you. There's one local organization, NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illnesses, that offers free training specifically about that to PDs. It's a new thing. It's exciting. I'd love for us to get on board with that. So I'd like an agreement that we will have those kinds of trainings within the first year of this ordinance being passed, and that occurs regularly, annually, for all our officers. Which, I should make it clear, I know all our officers have lots of training that they keep up with all the time. This would not be just like, wow, you should start training. There's lots of training that happens, but I'm wanting more training. And finally, the video, the great idea of an educational video that was so well lauded, or similar to the one that was so well lauded about the traffic stop, which of course came out of concern for our community, concern for making sure that our citizens understand their rights and they understand what's going on in a stressful situation from both perspectives. And I think that this is yet another really wonderful opportunity for minors, for their parents, and for the PD to all have a chance to have their perspective seen, so that when inevitably children are stopped, or minors are stopped because a police officer is concerned, everyone's a little more familiar with what might happen and what their role might be. What I'd like to do with that is have an agreement that video will be made, that production will start on that within 6 months, so that it's not something that carries on. I like times attached to things so that it doesn't carry on because we're all so busy. So I'd like to add that video creation will take place within 6 months.
And Mr. Jackson, did you copy all those recommendations?
Let me restate what I heard you say.
Yes, sir.
So you want to amend the ordinance
Yes, please.
by adding providing for an annual report into the caption,
Yes.
to be inserted in front of and providing for an effective date. And to add a section 44-2C reporting after section 42 or 44-2B, which would say the Lamarck Police Department shall provide to the city council at its February meeting each calendar year a report outlining the following information as related to this ordinance. 1, the number of interactions with minors. 2, the number of accidents involving minors. And 3, the number of crimes involving minors. And upon acceptance of the report by the Lamarck City Council, the report will be published on the city website on the Lamarck Police Department page. That's the amendment that you're making. And additionally, besides the amendment, you would ask that we give you a guarantee, not a promise, a guarantee that the video will be started within 6 months, and that we will be working on the training, getting additional de-escalation and mental health training for our police officers.
Yes, indeed.
Chief, we're good on that, right?
Yes, sir.
You got it.
Then I will, is that your motion for
That
an
is my
amendment?
motion.
I'll ask for a second on the amendment.
Second.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote on the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now I will ask for a motion on the ordinance as amended.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, council. Item B, discussion, possible action regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-008, amending chapter 68, article 5, section 68-138B of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lamarck, Texas, to adopt the revised drought contingency plan completed by LJA Engineering. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item C, discussion, possible action regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-009, amending Article 3, speed regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lamarck, Texas, Section 62-88, reducing the speed limit on the northbound main lanes and southbound main lanes of I-45 from 65 to 55, and reducing the speed limit on the northbound frontage road and southbound frontage roads from 50 to 45 until the completion of the freeway expansion project by the Texas Department of Transportation. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item D, discussion, possible action regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-0010, approving a road right-of-way abandonment of a portion of a right-of-way road easement being a tract of land being a part of the road right-of-way on the east side of Super City Subdivision Number 2, corrected according to the map or plat thereof, recorded in volume 254, page 60, in the office of the county clerk of Galveston County, Texas, and part of the road right-of-way on the west side of the Daughtry Survey Number 4, out of the Marchand subdivision in the Stephen F. Austin League Number 4, according to the map or plat of Marchand subdivision recorded in volume 254-A, page 50, in the office of the county clerk of Galveston County, Texas, Walker Street. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
I second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Item E, discussion, possible action regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-0011, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 1, in general, of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lamarck, Texas, by adding a new section 2-9, establishing procedures for placing items on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
I second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Item 9, under new business, discussion, possible action regarding awarding RFQ number 19-01 to LJA Engineering, Inc. for engineering services for proposed contract funding for the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery, CDBG-DR, through the Texas General Land Office for infrastructure and acquisition projects. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item B, discussion possible action authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into a contract with LJA Engineering, Inc. for engineering services of the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery through the Texas General Land Office for infrastructure and acquisition projects. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? C, discussion possible action regarding adopting resolution number R-2019-0015, authorizing the city manager of the city of Lamarque, Texas, as authorized signatory for contractual documents pertaining to the Texas General Land Office, GLO, Texas Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery, Hurricane Harvey, DR-4332. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? D, discussion possible action regarding adopting resolution number R-2019-0016 concerning civil rights, citizens participation plan, equal opportunity and fair housing policies related to the preparation of grant applications through the Texas General Land Office Community Development Block Grant. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? E, discussion possible action regarding the preliminary construction budget and proposed streetscape layout for the intersection of Laurel and First Street as provided by RPA Architects. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Item F, discussion possible action regarding adopting ordinance number 0-2019-0012, adopting the revised FEMA floodplain maps as a condition of continued eligibility in the National Flood Insurance Program. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item G, discussion possible action regarding accepting proposal from Enterprise Fleet Management to replace and dispose of certain public work vehicles. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10, appointments. Discussion possible action regarding appointments and/or reappointments to fill various positions of boards and commissions. I'd like to have the honor of beginning, if I may, Mr. David Holman, who was my appointment to Keep Lamarque Beautiful Commission, due to difficulties, has not been able to make the meeting, so I'll make a motion to remove him from that board and notify him of our gratefulness for his service.
I second.
Second, no discussion on appointments or reappointments. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now it's my even greater honor to appoint Ms. Tracy Steens to the Keep Lamarque Beautiful Commission, and I'll entertain a second.
I second.
There's no discussion on appointments or reappointments. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I want to thank Councilman for giving me that great recommendation. Miss Steens is a friend of mine. I supported AJ's lemonade stand, and what a wonderful young man he was when I walked up. When I walked up, AJ saluted me. He saluted the mayor, and when I left, he said, "Mayor, have a blessed day." Here, come on. Get right here.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you for your willingness to serve. Any other appointments or reappointments?
No, sir.
Any other appointments or reappointments?
None right now.
No. There's no executive session tonight. And so we'll go to requests and announcements. I have one. I'd like to wish our city manager a happy birthday on the 13th of July. Anyone else?
Yes, I would just like to reiterate again how encouraging I find it that on city council days like today, where we had a lot of things that people wanted to discuss, particularly the curfew ordinance, that's democracy at work. And it makes me really, really happy to see people who agree and disagree showing up, voicing their opinion, and putting themselves up for disagreement, for ridicule, for celebration, for all of that. And I would like to encourage that to happen more and more and more often. I'm sure there's many items on the agenda that you don't give a hoot about, and I just encourage everyone to continue paying attention, and to not only you continue to pay attention because it's preaching to the choir here, as we've iterated many times because you're here. Well done. But tell a friend, and tell an uninterested friend. And additionally, I'd like to again thank Chief Jackson and the entire police force for the very, very good work they do, and how caring, sensitive, and accountable I find our police chief to be. So that's my announcement.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor, you want to
Yes,
talk
I
about
do.
the?
I have two announcements. I plan on being at the next Texas City ISD School Board meeting next Tuesday to voice my opinion about getting a commitment for our middle school. I would ask for help. I would ask for everybody to show up, and I will be there unless we get that before then. And that might happen, but I want to go on public record and speak to that board because I supported that bond, and we're all paying our taxes, and I want what was promised to us. So I ask for your help.
What is the point of the meeting?
It's their regular school board meeting. I want them to commit where they're going to build the new middle school. They have been reluctant to say.
What is the one on Wyatt?
That's elementary.
It's elementary.
And I want, since we happen to have
A
school board member here, can we just reiterate, because they changed their calendar over the summer, I know. Nikisha, can you confirm, is it tomorrow or is it next week?
No, let me give you the date, because in July we take a sabbatical, and so we may not have it next Tuesday, so I'll send you a message.
Okay.
Well, then everybody will need to pay attention. As far as I know, it was scheduled for next Tuesday, and if it is, then I'll be there.
They don't currently have it on the calendar, but I know sometimes they announce it quickly.
My second announcement, we went through several months, almost 6 months, selecting a new city manager. I'm very happy to have Mr. Jackson here. But during that time, we had a young woman that held this city together and did an excellent job. And by all means could be a city manager anywhere, and actually she proved she was here. And I'd like to recognize Charlene Warren for the great job.
Here.
Anyone else? I'd like to also mention that we had a retreat on Saturday as a council, which was a posted open meeting. And we discussed doing like many other cities do in Galveston County, and that's having a public workshop before each council meeting where people can come and interact and voice their opinions, their likes, dislikes, whatever, on any given agenda item that evening at 6 p.m., followed by the regular meeting at 7 p.m., which will be a consent agenda. This is what the Commissioners Court does. This is what the city of Galveston does and many other cities. So instead of just having 3 minutes to give your opinion or ask a question, we'll still continue to have public hearings and everything like we do. But at 6 p.m., we'll have a workshop, public, in this room, where everyone can say what they think about the agenda items on that night, and then at 7 o'clock, we will have our regular meeting. I want to thank you all for coming. This was a great dialogue.
Are we gonna be able to talk back to us?
Are we going what?
Yes.
We'll be able to talk. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, forget my stoplight.
Okay.
Anybody want to buy a new stoplight? Yes, we will let the community go. With that, God bless you all, and we'll see you next time.